we're back on the Millennium in Review with our cast of characters this evening. We're talking about actually some rather interesting stuff. I mean, it was, when you think about it, a noisy week in the financial markets, but Maureen Allyn of Scudder, Stevens & Clark makes an interesting historical point this week that the U.S. economy may mirror that of the 1870s economy in the United States. That has some interesting investment implications if we want to explore it further, and we do. And Phil Rettew, I mean, you guys who look at charts and pictures of the financial markets very often engage in historical analysis. How valuable is it as a tool when we're in what some people consider a brand new era that is free of some of the risks that have threatened individuals in past history?
That's a very good question, but the answer, I suspect, is a lot more complicated. Historical comparisons are useful, but there are time frames within which they are more useful than other time frames, because obviously times have changed. This is a different world today compared with, say, the world of 30 years ago. There are elements of human behavior that are constant throughout time across culture, and that's one of the major engines of markets. So to the extent that we're talking about human behavior, we can make certain historical comparisons. But as society develops and we get more and more liquidity, more and more people in markets, more and more rapid change, then I suspect that the immediate dislocations become less and less. In more direct answer to your question about the comparisons, you're right. I think if the average person feels that the world is just terrific, I don't have to worry about the Cold War, I don't have to worry about World War II or a resurgence of a Vietnam or whatever other conflict you might think of. That's just military. We don't have pestilence, to the best of my knowledge. We've got an AIDS problem, but I don't think it's the same thing as the big plague.
Yeah, and we don't have inflation.
We have problems.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to say we don't have problems, but compared with the past 20 or 30 or 40 years, we have far fewer problems. I think our perceptions of problems are more diluted, and I think that there's a bit more complacency and hope than, say, there might have been in the 70s.
Right. And Bill Meehan, that reflects itself in individuals willing to throw money at mutual funds. Yeah. The old conventional wisdom suggests that when the individual gets into the stock market historically, it's the end of the bull market, they're going to get badly burned. These are not dumb people. They just made 70% over 2 years. Who's to say that they might not be correct going forward if they continue to throw money at the market?
Well, I think they, I don't know that they throw money at them. I'm sure there are some people that throw money at the market, and we did have a little bit of a correction in the middle part of the year, ending the middle of July. And then I think you saw some people throwing money at the market. There was all kinds of craziness, certainly a lot of irrational exuberance back then. I see people not really throwing money at the market. I see a lot of people, myself including, probably everybody around this table, that periodically puts a fairly good amount of their income to A, avoid taxes, and B, to take care of themselves when they retire, because the chances are very good if you want to live the type of lifestyle that you'd like to lead, it's not going to come from a government check.
All right, let's use this platform for some predictions then. Maureen, as far as the economy and the financial markets go, since we are approaching the millennium and we are at the beginning of the new year, what do you see ahead?
I think 97 is likely to be a very rough year. I think it's going to be very bumpy. I wouldn't expect it to put in a double-digit performance. I think it'll be lucky to do the single-digit. I think flat to slightly down is what I'd look for. But if you extend that to a 5-year period, I'm very bullish under that circumstance. I think we have to adjust to the disinflation, get lower credit both in the government and the household sector. Having done that, this is the hot spot for the technology, the global franchises. I got no problems in the long term.
All right, Bill, I only have about 30 seconds left. I'm going to give 10 seconds to each one of you. Your prediction for the financial markets this year.
Well, I think bond yields are going to be down to 6% by the end of the year, and I still stick with my story. Stocks up, something like 5, 6, 7, 8%.
Bill Meehan.
I agree also with the bond market, which makes me a little bit uncomfortable, but I think the surprise in the stock market maybe will go again another year to levels higher than most people expect.
Over to you.
I think it'll be net higher, but it'll be a troublesome road.
Bill Wolman, some editorials say this is much ado about nothing. Others suggest that this is equal to, worse than, or somewhere approximating the problems in the Clinton administration. This is all very tiring, but what do you think?
Take one from Group A and one from Group B.
Yeah.
My general feeling here is that that campaign finance is a terrible mess, and you can throw rocks anywhere you want. That being said, and that being known by everybody in Congress, my own guess is that except for Mr. Bonnier, he gets very excited, they want to damp this thing down to some extent. I really think that's the case because...
On both sides or just with respect
no,
to...
on both sides, because what GOPAC did, that's Gingrich's committee, is not too different from what many, many politicians did with slight variance on them. They want this thing suppressed, and I have a feeling that as a result of this, Gingrich will be reelected, and you're not going to see a tremendous amount of turmoil in this area. Now, I could be wrong, but that's my feeling. Too many people have too much to lose if they really start digging into campaign finance reform even more than into campaign finance.
You're disagreeing with Business Week's out front column.
That's only yes. All right. The answer is yes.
That's twice for you.
Yes.
All right. Have fun at the office on Monday. Maureen, now still though the issues with respect to the president are out there as well, and one wonders then what happens from here if indeed Mr. Gingrich gets into more trouble than people think. One would think that the equal and opposite reaction would hit the White House.
I kind of agree with that. I sort of think there may be some quid pro quo here, not formally, but we'll kind of dampen one thing off against the other, because I think Bill's absolutely right. This is not where you really want to spend a lot of your time looking at very closely. So I think I actually agree with you, Bill.
Okay.
Phil, you had mentioned that in the 1870s there was no capital gains tax to pay on investments. That is again an issue this year in the 105th Congress. Is there any hope on Wall Street that the capital gains tax for equity investments, not just houses, will be meaningfully reduced this year?
The fast answer is yes. There is always hope. I'm not enough of a politician or knowledgeable enough of the machinery of Congress to think that that's going to fly. I think I have a tough time getting that through, but that's just a common, everyday opinion that you might get from anybody.
Bill?
I think there's a possibility, especially if they put some type of time limit on it, so that the government can at the same time say yes, it might help the rich get a little bit richer near term, but longer term it'll probably add some money to the federal coffers.
Now, Maureen, what about this budget process? You know, today I talked to Congressman David Skaggs, a Democrat from Colorado who is one of several congressmen suing to block the use of the line item veto, which President Clinton has for the first time in history. It's interesting that two of the gentlemen who are suing, Robert Byrd of West Virginia and Mark Hatfield of Oregon, are on the Citizens Against Government Waste hit list for pork projects, one of whom received the Hall of Shame entry. Is there any chance that the line item veto sticks and that it becomes an effective budget tool going forward?
Oh, I think it'll stick. I think it should be in there. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I'm sort of in favor of it. But I think what's very interesting that people don't know, I was looking at the 12-month running deficit. You know, the September was the lowest point. Already 12 months running is $124 billion just through November. So they've got some real work to do just to stay even.
So in other words, we've reaccelerated.
We've
already.
reaccelerated. I think that was a sort of fluke that we had the 107 just a couple of months before the election. I think they've got some
fluke or
we'll call it a fluke. But I think we've got some real work to do. This is going to be the serious business. I think very interesting is something you said earlier, that in all the pages we read, about a billionth of it has to do with politics. I think the disassociation between politics and the finance is really bigger than the politicians realize. They can screw it up, but Wall Street's perfectly happy to go along without any help.
Right, Bill Wolman, any big predictions on the budget process that might lead to a balanced budget, to some sort of agreement, to something positive here?
Going back again, given the fact that Congress is uncomfortable and the president's uncomfortable because of campaign finance issues, there is an incentive to work along in the middle, and I think that incentive is very real, and I do think we'll get more progress on moving towards a balanced budget. I would say this country's done a good job in this area for a long time now as compared to almost anybody else in the industrial world, and I think we can bring the process so much further. I'm not predicting any miracles, but I don't think we're going to get into any kind of budgetary, any severe budgetary problems or budgetary imbalance or anything that's going to knock Wall Street for a loop in this area. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Helps when you have a big Social Security surplus to play with for a while.
Absolutely.
All right, Phil, everybody's back on Wall Street next week after the holidays. What do you expect from the stock market?
A little bit more volatility. I think that there will be pretty much a continuation of the trend. We haven't finished whatever this corrective process is. So I see some possibility of still some weakness. I think the Dow 62 to 6,300 level is pretty good support. We ought to be at least thinking in terms of that. And until and unless it gets below that 6,200, I think we're still dealing with an uptrend that isn't finished.
Bill Meehan, real quick, we have an employment report out next Friday. I take it the markets will key off that.
Yeah, very much so, because we've gotten two numbers now, consecutive numbers that are stronger than expected. The bond market didn't like them at all, and we're going to need some help from that employment number.
Maureen, what are you looking for on the employment front?
I don't think it's going to be that strong. I think we're going to have a supportive number.
Bill Wolman?
I'm on Maureen's side, but she and I are sort of clones in terms of forecasting these days, which makes us both
Why did
nervous.
you grimace, Maureen? You grimaced when Bill said that.
Right, okay.
Well,
The wild card in the market is the foreigners. They keep buying. We could have a big up leg yet.
all right. Bill Meehan, Phil Rettew, Bill Wolman, Maureen Allyn, thanks all for being here.
Thank you for watching, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe.